Welcome back to another EDH deck tech. This is Tinybones Trinket Thief. Very strong discard commander. Just super cheap. You get the trigger off every end step, which is fantastic. So for those cards that are repeatable when it comes to discard, you're going to get lots of value off. So you're going to be drawing, 4, 5 cards around essentially. So just really, really strong, and not a particularly fun deck to play against. I don't often play this deck. I usually only play it online, just because I don't really want to torment my friends with a deck like this. But sometimes it's just a lot of fun just to start ripping people's hands. And Tinybones is great because it comes down so early. So we'll go through the deck stats. So do keep in mind that there are some cards that actually work in multiple categories. So maybe discard and draw at the same time. So super, super valuable. So we have 27 discard cards. So that includes single off discards. Maybe it's a mass discard where it's going to get rid of everyone's hands. Or it's a repeatable one card each player's turn, for instance. Then we have 15 discard payoffs, so things that will benefit off of us discarding. So that does include Tinybones itself, because we will, when we discard an opponent's card, we're going to be drawing cards. So, those kind of payoffs, there's a lot of deal damage when somebody discards a card. We have 3 tutor spells, just to get some of those important cards, and 16 draw cards as well. So, you need plenty of draw. So Tinybones also includes itself in that category, and just getting through that deck because you are discarding a lot of cards yourself as well as your opponents. So you need a lot of draw to kind of back it up. Some protection spells, just 2 protection spells, just to make sure that Tinybones does stay around. Fortunately, it is cheap enough that it can come out, but we don't really want to be investing in our discards and also have to pay command attacks on Tinybones. So just a few protection spells is good. 35 lands, one of them is a modal double face card. I'll let you try and guess which one. We have 11 ramp cards as well, so some of them might be permanent ramps, like artifacts and things like that, and other might be land permanents that will tap from a mana. 10 removal spells. You do still need to run a few removal spells, but if you can be discarding people's big threats late in the game, those removal spells might be less relevant, but you still need to run some just in case. And just 2 alternate win cons. Discarding's usually not enough. You need something to kind of finish people off. So yeah, we'll go through the deck. Okay, so first up we have all of our one-off kind of discard effects. So things that will get those cards out of people's hands just once. Now, all of these are pretty much focused on hitting as many opponents as possible. So there are quite a few discard effects that are single opponent, single use, things like Thoughtseize. So I've generally tried to avoid those kind of spells. I really wanted to focus on spells that will hit everyone at once. So one of the best ones for that, Awaken the Erstwhile, everyone's going to discard their entire hand, fantastic, and they're just going to create some zombies, and those zombies generally just run into each other anyway. So it's not really a big problem. Maybe somebody's got a board where they can start sacrificing them for value, but hopefully you've discarded a few people's kind of key strategies like that. So just really, really nice. Burglar Rat, these are the cheapest of these kind of effects where you get a creature that can serve as a blocker as well. And it's just going to get a card out of every opponent. Dark Deal, everyone's going to essentially wheel. They're going to be discarding 1 card from that, but they're going to be getting rid of their hand as well. Mind Slicer, really, really powerful, very much like Awakening as well. When this dies, everyone's going to be ditching their hand, so nobody's going to be wanting to swing out at you for you to block or anything like that. They'll be wanting to try to exile this if they can. Rotting Rats, Another one where each player discards. So this will include you. So it's essentially a 2-for-1 on yourself. But you do get to unearth it later on. So it's essentially 2 discards in one. So that's quite nice. Smallpox. I love Smallpox. I play 8-rack in Modern. And it just does everything. Everyone's going to lose life. Everyone's going to discard a card. Everyone's going to sack a creature. And everyone's going to lose a land. So just, good just to kind of keep the game under wraps. They do get to choose what they sacrifice. So, try to play it optimally. But if you're getting rid of people's hands, they're going to have less options. Maybe they only have the one creature out. It's going to be quite nice. Delirium Schemes. So this is another one where all players discard. So this does include yourself. But the idea is that you're hopefully making that value back up with Tinybones. And it's just, 3 mana for 3 cards. Great. Elderfang Disciple, essentially a burger rat. Does the same thing. Mind Rake. So this is target player, so it's one of the few target players, but it can be paid for its overload cost, which does make it cheaper. And essentially, it's a wrench mind on everyone. So quite nice. 2 mana for 2 cards, great value. Cipher Mind. This is one that everyone kind of gets a draw, so it's like a Raven's Crime on everyone. Sorry, so they're all going to discard, but you're going to draw, so you're going to get 3 cards. And you're going to get 3 cards. So it's quite nice. It's good for getting your hand back. That's a good Cruelty. This one's great. So again, it's each opponent, but it has a delve cost, and those discard spells that you've already discarded, you don't really need to try to get back again. So we're generally going to be able to play the delve cost. Probably don't want this in your opening hand, but it's still great kind of mid game, and netting 2 cards for 1 mana, really great. And then Vicious Rumors, just 1 mana. It just gets everyone a card out, and you're going to gain a life, and you're going to mill a card. You're going to do 1 damage. So it just does a little bit of everything, but it's just super efficient at 1 mana. Arterial Flow, another one where it's just each opponent discards 2 cards. I don't believe I have a vampire in this list, so you're not really going to get that clause. But 3 mana for 2 cards is pretty much the going rate, and it's going to get everyone. So you're going to be getting 6 cards off this. You don't need to discard, which is great. So some of the repeatable effects: the Bottomless Pit. At the beginning of each upkeep, that player is going to discard a card. So this is repeatable with Tinybones. You're then going to draw a card, which is great. Court of Ambition. This is on your upkeep, so they have the choice, so they can discard a card or lose life. Mainly, I find that they will usually choose to lose life rather than discard a card. But sometimes it gets to the mid game and they have no cards, so they just have to start losing that life. And if you can keep the mono because you're keeping the board nicely clear, then you're going to be doing even more, and you're going to be drawing cards, which is what you want. Necrogymus, another one at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player's going to discard a card. Great, repeatable. You're going to be getting 4 cards, including yourself, when it comes back to you. So great. Oppression, a very strong card. So it's going to really discourage people from playing spells because they're going to be having to discard a card. So they're going to feel like they need to play their spells because you're going to discard them anyway. So it really speeds up the fact that nobody has any hands. And then Painful Quandary. So whenever they cast a spell, so if they are casting a spell, they are going to lose 5 life or discard a card. Usually they'll start losing life just to kind of keep their resources. You really start to whittle down people's life totals. Cunning Lithomancer, another one that's just this is like Bottomless Pit, but just on a it's like a Corner Ambition, I guess. Except it's on a stick, so you get a 2/2, kind of nice. But you're going to be getting a card out of everyone. Liliana the Veil, fantastic. 3 mana, comes out super early, can protect itself by getting rid of a creature if it needs to, but it's really there just to start the discard. Again, with these cards, you want Tinybones out so that you net your card back because you are also discarding. So you're 2 for 1 in yourself, but with Tinybones, you're going to get that card back. So quite nice. Liliana Wake of the Dead, just a little bit more expensive. Liliana Veil, it's going to do the same thing, and it does have, the opponent's going to lose life if they can't discard, which is quite nice. So you're going to continue to get value even though they have no hand. Rankle, Master of Pranks, great one. 4 mana is going to come down. It's going to have haste. It's going to swing out. It can draw you cards, which is nice as well. But it's going to be there to discard a card. We don't have too many creatures other than like the Burglar Rats and the Elder Fang Disciples that we really want to sacrifice. So you're going to get that value a little bit, but it's there just to each turn discard people's cards and also help to draw you cards. Maybe you want to give your opponent's cards so that you can actually discard them. So you're getting some value off your discard. So it doesn't matter if you let them draw because you're going to discard it anyway. And then Words of Waste, great card. It can just sit there and you essentially just pay 1 to get rid of 3 cards out of people's hands. Just great value. Yeah, and constantly repeatable, and all this is just continuing to pay 1. Okay, next up is our value cards. So these are the things that we're going to get value off of our discards. So first up, Bag of Holding, super cheap, can come down really early. It just sits there, just collecting everything that we've discarded, and then later on, it's going to give us all those cards back. So really nice. Bloodchief's Ascension, we're going to be discarding people's cards, so they're going to be going into the graveyard. It's going to be triggering Bloodchief's Ascension. It's going to start whittling down people's lives. Very powerful, comes down super early. These are this and Bag of Holding kind of things that we want to get down before Tinybones and then before our discards as well, just to kind of start that value train. Bone Miser, we're going to be discarding a lot of cards, so getting that value. The great thing with Bone Miser, it's 4/4, so that's okay, but we have control over what we discard now, so we can kind of pick and choose, okay, what do I need to get benefit off? Do I need some more mana, or do I need to draw cards? Stuff like that, so you get that value. Fell Spectre, when it comes in, it is going to target one person's hand, so maybe somebody has more cards than everyone else. You can just get rid of one, but it's nice that it just sits there as a stick that's just going to do 2 damage to people when they discard a card, so that's great. Liliana's Caress and Megrim, very similar, so they're going to do 2 damage. Liliana's Caress does loss of life, where Megrim does 2 damage, so keep that in mind. But essentially, these 3 cards, Fell Spectre, Liliana's Caress, and Megrim, all the same, all come down at different times. But yeah, you are discarding people's cards, so you're going to be getting that value off of it. Quest for the Nihilstone. So this one, it's on flavor. We're going to be discarding people's hands, so you're going to get counters on this one. And if they have no cards, they're going to be losing 5 life, which is a lot of life. And yeah, people just have no cards in their hands on a regular basis. So this starts chewing down people's life totals really quickly. It has the kind of the rack effect, which is great. Raider's Wake. So whenever an opponent discards a card, that player's going to lose 2 life. So just like Liliana's Caress, so a little bit more expensive, but it does have Raid. So when you have attack, target player is going to discard a card. The Raid doesn't come up too often. Great with Rankle because you want to be swinging out with Rankle, so you kind of get that Raid trigger. Yeah, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. You just target opponents, discards a card, so you're not going to get the full value of the whole table, but it's just there as a kind of another Liliana's Caress effect. Sangromancer. So opponent's creatures will still die. You have some removal, as well as other opponents killing off creatures. But it's there also for the opponent's discarded card. So just great value. You're going to be gaining a lot of life. So each time someone discards a card, you're going to be gaining 3 life. There's a lot of cards that discard 2 cards at a time. So 18 life. Swing is quite nice. Waste Not, just like Bone Miser, but this one's super cheap. You want to get it down as early as possible, kind of before you start discarding, just so that you can start getting that value. Eventually, opponents aren't really going to be able to choose what they discard. So you know you're going to get some of the best effects of this. Yeah, it's just super cheap, really nice, efficient. Shrinking Affliction, kind of like Quest for the Nihil Spellbomb. So this is each opponent's upkeep. If they have fewer cards in hand, then he or she loses 3 life. So you know you're just gonna hitting people for 3 each turn. It's gonna be great. You know they just have to have 1 or less cards in, so you know people will have no cards in their hand, and you're going to be doing 3 damage each turn. Great. Turgid, God of Fright, absolutely fantastic card, very strong. We don't have too many sacrifice effects to force people to sacrifice, but what we are doing is forcing them to discard. So you're going to get the value from that discard. Again, people are going to get to a point where they can't really pick and choose what they discard. They just have to get rid of cards. So you know you're going to be getting those big beaters that they're kind of trying to hold on to as best they can. So it's super nice, very strong. And then Turgid's Lantern is on the flip side. Not really something I use a lot in this deck, but maybe I need to start getting people's life totals down. Then that's pretty nice. Again, if they don't really have a lot of cards, so this is kind of like Court of Ambition, they don't have a lot of cards in their hand, they're just going to have to start taking the 3 life. So it's good to just kind of start whittling people's opponents down. Wheel of Torture, old card, very hard to kind of understand, but essentially it's just a rack effect, which is quite nice. Up next is our draw spells. So again, we need to be drawing a lot of cards. Tinybones does help us draw, which is really nice because there's a lot of 2-for-1s on ourselves. So we need to kind of make up that discard. But to help with that, you got Asylum Visitor. So this is nice because it has Madness, so we can cast it when we discard a card. So that's quite nice. You get a little extra added value from your discard. And when you have no cards, you're essentially just going to Phyrexian Arena yourself, which happens all the time. We often have no cards, so we're kind of playing off the top of our deck, so it's nice to get an additional card. Bolas' Citadel, absolutely fantastic. Put it in a lot of black decks. We get to look at our top of our card of our deck and you know play that for life. We've got a few life gain effects, so which is nice, but not too many. But our spells are relatively cheap. We have a low average mana value. So you're going to get a lot of value off this, just churning out those spells. And if you know everyone's kind of discard their spells and you have a discard card on top, you just kind of keep it there and just hold it for later. Guess Grimoire, the best draw spell when it comes to discard decks. 4 mana, so it's getting up there, but every time an opponent discards a card, you're going to be drawing a card. So when you're got things like Arterial Flow and everyone's discarding 2 cards, you're drawing you know 6 cards. Great. Necropotence, we don't really care about the exile effect when it comes to discard. We just want to get as many cards in our hand as possible. Absolutely great draw spell. Never leave a black deck without it. Knight's Whisper, 2 mana for 2 cards, just super efficient. The life loss doesn't really matter. Phyrexian Arena, it's good because this one can just kind of sit there. This one I'd probably say is on the better side in this kind of deck as opposed to other black decks where sometimes it's on the verge of being cut. But it's nice to have that thing that can just sit there and be repeatable. It's going to get you that additional card each turn because we will often have no cards in our hand and playing off the top of our deck. So it's nice to have 2 cards each turn. Sign of Blood, just like Knights of Whisper, this one does target another player if that's relevant. And then we have some tutors, so Demonic Tutor, just to get the best card of our in our deck. Maybe you want to go like Bolas' Citadel, or maybe you want to get one of those repeatable effects out, like Bottomless Pit or something like that, where you can start churning out cards because you're going to play Tinybones. Expedition Map gets me any land. We play a lot of utility lands. So this is great just to get those out of the deck. There are some lands that also help to discard opponent's cards, so getting that out is quite nice. And Vampiric Tutor, just super cheap, efficient, instant. It's just going to put something on top of my deck, one of those like Bottomless Pit kind of effects, because once we have those and Tinybones out, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards to keep up with discarding our opponent's hands. Okay, next up is removal. So you still need to play a lot of removal in this deck, but you do want to be discarding people's cards, so the need for that removal is not as high, but sometimes people will play some still threatening stuff. And you know, when you're targeting people's hands, you can often be the target of that threat. So first up, Baleful Mastery. I've been putting this in a lot of my black decks. I've been really enjoying it. Just super cheap and efficient. Yes, you are going to be giving somebody a card, but in this deck, you're just going to be discarding the card anyway. So it's even better than normal. And it's just exile type creature or planeswalker. So planeswalkers can be hard to hit in this deck. So Baleful Mastery is quite nice. Damnation, board wipe, gonna get rid of all the creatures, fantastic. Deadly Rollick, another one. I do want to be playing my commander, it is a focus of this deck, so meeting this clause is really great. So if somebody's swinging out at me with a big creature, I can exile it, great. Defile, just a generically cheap and efficient removal spell, instant. We play a lot of swamps, so you know you're going to get rid of those indestructible creatures, which is great. Feed the Swarm, going to get rid of a creature or an enchantment. There can be some pesky enchantments out there, so it's just nice to remove. Mutilate, just like Defile, it's going to give everything -1/-1. Again, lots of swamps, so really fantastic. Plaguecrafter, creatures will be at a minimum in the games where you play Tinybones. You don't have a lot of creatures, and you're going to be discarding people's hands, so they most likely will have not a lot of creatures unless they can kind of get an engine up and running. So you're going to be hitting those bigger cards that do come down. And then Toxic Deluge, super cheap, and you're just going to pay those cards that life anyway. So really great. Next up is Ramp. We have a 2-mana commander, so the ramp is not as important. We have a very low average mana value. But still always key. You know, we've got like things like Bolus of Citadel that we need to get up to, so you still need some of that ramp. So Arcane Signet, classic. Dark Ritual, great. It's gonna get me a one-off boost in mana. Fellwar Stone, an opponent usually is playing black. If not, you can kind of treat it as a colorless mana rock. Jet Medallion, we have a lot of black spells. In this deck in particular, there's a lot of like 1 generic and black or 2 black for spells. So there's a lot of generic costs in this deck, so Jet Medallion is really great for that. Mind Stone, if we really need to, we can draw later on. That's great. Soul Ring is a classic. And Thought Vessel, no Magma Headsight is really not relevant in this deck. But if you've got to guess Grimoire out or something like that, it could be nice to hold on to those cards. But it's just there as a colorless mana rock. Next up is Protection. So Tinybones will be targeted quite a lot because you're going to be discarding people's hands and they're not going to like it. So Imp's Mischief's just there, just as kind of a counter spell if someone's just going to point a removal spell at it. So just kind of help change the target of that spell, which is nice. And then Malakir Rebirth. This one's probably the better one where, you know, if it does die, it's going to come back, which is nice. And you're just going to lose life, but it's a land on the other side, so super powerful in that regard, and just relatively cheap at 1 mana. And then some alternate win conditions. So we have a lot of deal 2, deal 3 damage here and there. So we need a way of kind of starting to end that game. So, you know, maybe everyone's down to like 20 life, nobody has any cards. Grey Merchant of Asphodel, that you have a few permanents on the battlefield with your repeatable discard and things like that. So you will be able to get Devotion up high. So yeah, Grey Merchant, great card. And then Torment of Hellfire. You know, you might just need to do this for, you know, X equals 8 or something, just to kind of finish off the board. Just super nice. Nobody has discards to nobody has cards to discard to it. So they're essentially just going to be sacking permanents and taking life, which is great. And up last is our land, the most important part. So we don't have a lot of actual non-land permanent kind of ramp. So we've kind of got that in our land packages. So I play this kind of suite in all of my black decks essentially, with a few extra utility lands here and there. So Ancient Tomb, just great. It's going to give us that extra mana boost. Not really too relevant early on, but later on, really great. Jugabog, Graveyard Hate, fantastic. Cabal Coffers, absolutely busted. Getting a nice reprint. So, you know, you only need your 3 swamps, and then it starts to get mana itself. Cabal Stronghold, just like Cabal Coffers, but do note that this one is basic swamps only, so we do want to be running a lot of basic swamps. So we will be fine with this regard, else it's just a colorless. Castle Lochbane. So I normally have, say, War Room in this spot, but with Castle Lochbane, we're going to be having no cards. So being able to tap and pay 1 life just for that card, fantastic. You could have War Room or have an additional War Room as well in this slot, but Castle Lochbane works because we're just going to have no cards in our hand anyway. And it does tap for black, which War Room does not, and we'll have the Swamp Claws, so it's quite nice. But you could easily run both War Room and Castle Lochbane, but you also, you know, need to keep your swamp count high. Gaia Reach Sanitarium, another one. So this one, you know, each player is going to draw a card and then discard that card anyway. So you can play Tinybones and play this just to make sure to guarantee net yourself that card. So yes, you're going to be discarding a card as well, but then you're going to be drawing cards off Tinybones. So fantastic. Nykthos, just same with Grey Merchant of Asphodel. We're going to have Devotions because we're going to have a lot of black permanents with repeatable discard effect. So we'll be able to tap this for, you know, usually more mana, 5, 6. Strip Mine, I normally play a land destruction land in all of my decks, depending on the budget. It will be a Ghost Quarter or a Strip Mine or something like that. Just because other people will have Cabal Coffers, other people will have Gaia's Cradles, or Field of the Deads can be really annoying, especially in this kind of deck. So yeah, I always have something like that in here. Lots of swamps, of course, about 23, 24 swamps in this, and then Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, turn everything into swamps. It's just super valuable, just even turning my utility lands into swamps. But more importantly, it's to turn Cabal Coffers into a swamp itself, so it considers itself. This does not work with Cabal Stronghold though. And that's my lands. I hope you enjoy this deck. It's been a lot of fun. Not something I play with my friends too often, like I said. Some people don't like to have their hands discarded. I find it a particularly fun strategy. And, you know, if you want to discard my cards too, by all means, go ahead. I understand the fun of it. But yeah, just make sure that your play group is up for that kind of game. But it can be very challenging. You can often be arch enemy, but really, really enjoyable. Thanks. Enjoy.